Good morning again, everyone. Mr. Robert Karanja is here with us, and he will actually be doing the country highlight. So let me tell you a little bit about him before he comes up here to join me. And just to let you know, Ms. Sharon Yumanyangna is the director of Rwanda's Center for Digital Public Infrastructure. So, more information now about Mr. Robert. Robert currently serves as a senior director at Co-Develop, where he leads the firm's strategic investments and partnerships in Africa, leveraging on his experience and networks on the continent. He's currently working to advocate for the development of a credible African-led, African-owned stack of digital public infrastructure assets that will change the trajectory of this continent. He is currently deeply engaged with the governments of Zambia, Rwanda, Ghana, Tanzania, Morocco, South Africa, and many others to provide relevant digital advisory to teams in each of the respective governments. So please make Robert welcome.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Karanja from Co-Develop. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about Co-Develop at the DPI Forum. We are one of the co-sponsors, and Co-Develop, of course, works with countries across the world to fast-track the adoption of digital public infrastructure at population scale. So I manage and lead our investments in Africa. It's a daunting task, as my colleague Matthew will tell you. We have 54 countries on the continent, population of just under 1.5 billion. And some of those countries, some of those 55 countries or 54 countries are some of the fastest growing economies in the world today. And Rwanda is one of them. The other thing that's important to note and very relevant to Rwanda, and the reason I'm speaking on behalf of Sharon, sure, I should have mentioned that, is Sharon was scheduled to get her US visa last week because you've got to transit through the US, but that visa was only issued on Tuesday. So leaving on Tuesday from Kigali to try and get to Kingston is easily a 45 to 50-hour flight, right, with layovers. So she would have been getting here on Saturday or Friday, for that matter. I just told Sharon, why don't you stay back? I'll see you when I'm back in Rwanda. Rwanda is a country that I'm very familiar with. I've had the wonderful opportunity of working in Rwanda for about 25 years now. I first stepped into Rwanda sometime in 2002, 2003. And so it's a country that I've seen grow and develop, and is one of the most progressive countries, if not on the continent, definitely globally. Small country, but with big ambition. So at Co-Develop, we are working with the government of Rwanda on specific DPI use cases that they've prioritized. And so we're working on a national digital ag value chain. We're also working with Rwanda on their credit registry. And we're also working with Rwanda on mobile number portability, including the portability of mobile wallet. So when users move from one network to another, not only do they keep their number, but they also keep their mobile wallet, which is important. I'm still trying to get over the fact that mobile money in Jamaica is still nascent, but I'm dealing with it. And please feel free to ask me any questions as we move forward. So Rwanda's digital transformation journey. This is a brief agenda of some of the areas that I'll cover, an overview of Rwanda, the vision that Rwanda has. I'll also look at some of the key milestones and digital public infrastructures that Rwanda is focusing on, where Rwanda is today, and also an ambitious new project that we are supporting Rwanda on at the moment, which is the development of a Kigali-based Center for Digital Public Infrastructure. Rwanda wants to curate a center in which they will be able to bake all their DPI use cases. And they also want to invite neighboring African countries to come in and learn from them. One interesting fact, and I think I was glancing through Sharon's presentation earlier today about Rwanda, is Rwanda has, in early March 2025, effectively become the first country in the world to take on a new instant and inclusive payment system that is open source. So they've essentially got rid of their vendor locked payment system and have started working with Mojaloop to set up an instant and inclusive open payment system. And the first use case that they're rolling out on Mojaloop is P2M, right? And they are looking at also onboarding other use cases as they move along. So they've taken ownership of the source code. They've got out of a vendor locked system that had them, locked in for many years, and are now transitioning to an open source, instant, and inclusive payment system. So this is Rwanda at a glance. About 14 million people. The capital is Kigali, and 3 major languages are spoken: Kinyarwanda, English, and French. So Rwanda has been very fortunate. Post 1994, I think we all remember what happened in 1994, 30 years ago, to have had a leader who is leading from the front. It's not always been easy, but Rwanda really recovered from the ashes, if you like, from 1994 to get to where they are. So led by His Excellency President Paul Kagame, Rwanda envisions itself to be a high-income country by 2050. Right? They're currently a low-income status country, but they do envision themselves being a high-income country by 2050. And I believe they'll do it, because in Rwanda, it's you see and you do, not you see and you try. It's you see and you do, and they just get the job done. They have worked on several key digital strategies, including a national ICT strategy that underpins most of their digital focus. And they also have a Smart Rwanda master plan that is also guiding them. In terms of digital infrastructure, Rwanda currently has an 89% mobile penetration rate, and 60% of the population has access to quality. Interestingly, they have 100% digital ID with their national ID. So anyone who qualifies for ID, I think they're issuing IDs from the age of 16 upwards. 100% of those individuals have access to digital ID in Rwanda. Financial inclusion, 93% of all Rwandese have access to financial services. Only 7% are excluded, which is a good achievement. Some of the key digital platforms that Rwanda has worked on include Irembo, and you feel free to Google that. Rwanda has a citizen portal called Irembo, irembo.gov, where they have well over 100 public services that have been digital. Rwanda has digital ID, 100% coverage. RNDPS, I referred to the Instant Inclusive Payment System, which is run under the Rwanda National Digital Payment System, and then a full-fledged data interoperability platform. And one of the ambitions that Rwanda has is to set up a Center for Digital Public Infrastructure by the end of this year, which will first serve the country needs, and then eventually will be rolled out for access to other countries in the East Africa region, so Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, and others. I talked about the vision for Rwanda, led from the front, and leadership has embraced digital technology. The Rwandese tell an interesting story when you talk to them about how don't know if it's Matthew, who shared a room with stacks of paper. All cabinet meetings in Rwanda are held digitally, right? It's a paperless system. And so they're leading this from the front in terms of what they want to do and also some of the ambitions that they have for their citizens. They've got very solid ICT systems, ICT strategies, and I referred to those. And then the Smart Rwanda Master Plan talks about a zero trip and zero paper. So no paper in the system. Everything is digitized. It's either on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, and you do not need to make a trip from point A to point B to access services. So zero trip and zero paper, eliminating unnecessary travel and reducing paper use. Rwanda has a 20-year ICT policy and strategy, and that's clearly explained. Those are the different infrastructure plans, the ICT strategies, brand, and transforming Rwanda into a digital economy and ICT. And I'm just going to maybe share something that's not covered in those slides about some of the ambition that Rwanda is working on. Not sure how many are familiar with the fact that Rwanda has also set up a strategic arrangement with the government of Qatar. And the Qataris have effectively bought an interest in Rwanda. And so they are now looking at setting up what will effectively be East Africa's largest transit airport. Bole in Addis Ababa currently holds that record. I think they receive more transit passengers than any other airport in the region. I remember my dear friend Anina almost missing a flight a couple of years ago trying to run through Bole. Her and I were conversing. So Bole in Addis Ababa is going to get a lot of competition from Rwanda's new airport in the next couple of years. There's a lot of ambition in that country, and nothing is holding them back, right, in terms of the direction that they want to go in. I'm Kenyan, and I can clearly see that Rwanda is going to take the pie out of our mouth because of the ambition that they have. So I keep telling my Kenyan colleagues, and whenever I get to speak to people in government who I work with, that if you keep politicking like this, Rwanda will step right ahead of us and will be left holding nothing, not even the baby or the bathwater, right? It will have all been thrown out. So lots of ambition in a small country. This is a slide on the core digital public infrastructure that Rwanda has built. Remember, currently on version 3.0, SACCO digitization, single digital ID, the Rwanda National Digital Payment System, government service bus, and the smart gov admin system. I'm sorry, that slide is not very clear. White back. How is Rwanda integrating the digital infrastructure? For one, there's a huge focus on system integration, interconnected components, and a unified digital government architecture that's led by RISA, the Rwanda Information Systems Authority. Rwanda has also made very conscious decision to transition all digital systems into open source. They're not going to remain in any vendor-locked system. They're leveraging open source platforms, and that's the reason why moving to Moja Loop was such an easy decision. And for continuous improvement. So they want to take ownership of the source code, be able to customize it to their needs, right? And not have to rely on a vendor for any change requests, which can take months sometimes and also costs millions of dollars in some cases. In Kenya at the moment, we've been considering the transition from a vendor-locked national payment system. And when I speak to the switch operator, very often they'll tell me that a change request to the switch to the vendor can cost on average about 50K US. And very often when you submit a change request on the switch, sometimes the vendor will take even up to 6 months to come and attend to you. So the problem that you had 6 months ago is no longer a problem 6 months down the road because you figured it out, right? But you have no access to source code. So you've got to depend on the vendor. You've got to depend on their systems just to make small payments. And this is a national payment system. It puts the entire country at risk, right? And then, of course, a user-centric approach. Can the citizens remain at the center of all digital services? It's about the user. At Co-Develop, we are placing a strong emphasis on what is the beneficiary use case. And then finally, interoperability. Seamless data exchange between systems, between both the public and the private sector, sectors, health, finance, ag. You've got a single source of truth, which is a digital ID, which says, I am who I say I am. And then you can transition between all the different systems and government services. So this is the Center for DPI that we are currently supporting Rwanda to do. They're working with a number of consulting firms to design the roadmap for the center. This center will provide technical support. It will also be a hub for R&D and collaboration. It will provide training and capacity building, and then also provide demonstration environments. Even as Rwanda takes on Mojalu, this center will be able to act as a lab through which countries can see how the P2M use cases are being applied on Mojalu. And what I like is the fact that they not only envision this as a national center for DPI expertise, but they're actually looking at this as a center that can be used by countries in the region. So other state actors can come in and have a look at it. The private sector can come in and have a look at it. And so they're willing to share information in the region. That's how ambitious Rwanda is. This is what the road ahead looks for Rwanda, 2030, 5 years down the road. They are looking at expanding and scaling up the digital infrastructure and greater integration. DPI use cases that we're working with them are initially set out for a timeline of 2 years and possibly another 2 years beyond that. They're also looking at strengthening partnership, whether it's with GPGs, with other countries in the region. Learning. They've spent a lot of time in India learning from the India model. They've also spent time in Estonia looking at X-roads and seeing how best those systems can be applied to Rwanda. And then finally, and I like this last one, capacity building. I think one of the themes that we heard yesterday was to walk fast, walk alone. Matthew, I hope I'm saying it correctly. You had to go fast, you can walk alone. But to go far, you need to work together. So they're looking at collaboration. And that ambition of training 1,000 plus DPI experts across the continent, not only for Rwanda, but across the continent for sustainable growth, I think says a lot about what they're looking at doing. So this was specifically for the Caribbean. I told Sharon to add this slide in on how can Rwanda and the Caribbean collaborate. And so she gave me 3 buckets. The first to the left is shared challenges. And you can see them there: inclusive service delivery, financial accessibility, and sustainable development. How do we also transfer best practices between the 2 regions? And then also collaborative opportunities. Interestingly, when Sharon was when I told her about coming to Jamaica to attend the DPI summit, Rwanda is a relatively new member of the Commonwealth, and so I don't think Jamaica has. I think many of the other Caribbean countries have not yet provided visa-free access to Rwanda as a Commonwealth member, although it should apply to Commonwealth country. So I think she had to get her visa from the consulate, and I suspect it was Pretoria. Right, so shipping passport to Pretoria, waiting, and which is why her US visa was delayed. But if Prof, you can speak to MFA. You could have them consider extending that courtesy also to Rwanda as a Commonwealth country, because Rwanda actually left collaboration with France and joined the Commonwealth deliberately, although they were not a British colony, right? So those are some of the challenges. Even just movement of, let alone sharing information and knowledge, can we make the movement of people across our two regions easier, right? And so, final call to action. This is what Rwanda had listed: a journey of vision, working proactively towards robust digital infrastructure. Of course, the center, which I've referred to several times, Rwanda is actively working on designing a center for DPI, and then invitation for partnership. So if any of the Caribbean islands are interested in connections to Rwanda, I'll be happy to make those connections. A country that I work closely with and spend a lot of time with, including with the Minister of ICT, and happy to make those connections where you do see collaboration. I'm happy that the Rwandese listed us as some of their partners, the Gates Foundation, and of course, Mojalu, who's running their P2M on the inclusive and instant payment systems. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that presentation. I have 3 questions for you. One is, from my observation of the presentations, we talk a lot about working together, but there does seem to be a trend emerging where different regions are doing their own DPI, right? So I guess the first question is, we have a lot of DPIs already available in India. We see in Rwanda now open sourcing their solutions. So the question is, why is Rwanda choosing to go on their own? I mean, one of the speakers yesterday did say that uh, it is imperative for the Caribbean to even look at building their own, right? So not just consuming, but making. So the question is, why is that important? Rather than, if it's open source, all regions could theoretically leverage one common system. And given that we've seen different solutions emerge from different regions, the other question would be, the follow-up is, are we seeing any difference in approach to how they've done their digital public infrastructure or the digital public goods, in terms of whether it be architectural approaches or whether it's be philosophical or other approaches around how they release it and how they operate it. So that's the main question there. And then the other one is, when we talk about DPIs, um, as a representative of Fujitsu, we've also partnered with Scandinavian universities, especially in the health sector, to leverage some of their technology. But a lot of the DPIs seem to be coming from the developing world. So the question is that the developed world, basically Europe or North America, are they taking a different approach? Because why is it a lot of the DPI conversation is only from the development agencies and also the developing countries? Is there a different dynamic at play outside of those countries? So those are the 2 questions. Thank you.
That was more like an essay, but I'll start with the last question. Why are most of the DPIs coming from the developing world? And I'll answer a bit of that. I'll respond to some of that in my next presentation. But if you think about it, and India is a good example, digital public infrastructure would not have got to the levels it got to in India if they were not solving for certain and very specific use cases, right? You have a population of 1 billion plus people who need ID. Then you need to think about a solution, because it's a use case driven solution, right? If it's sanitation and urban management in big cities, Nairobi has a population of 5.5, 6 million people. Lagos is 20 million people. Cairo is 25 million people. How do you manage that scope of cities without solutions? So it's use case driven, right? The digitization of civil registration. My birth certificate is written on paper. I don't even know where it is. Yeah. I scanned it somewhere. But if people are being born every day, people are dying every day, people are getting married every day, so you have life events, then the use case would be you need to digitize those services so that people have access to those documents on a phone or on web in government offices. So again, it's use case driven. So I think that answers your last question. Why is it coming from the developing world? And I'm not saying that in Europe or in North America, they don't have challenges that they're trying to solve for. But I had an opportunity to try and talk to some of my American friends on how mobile money works, and so like I was speaking Russian. Yeah, but we were solving for a problem. If we did not have a large population of people who are unbanked, mobile money would not be where it is. So it was a problem. Then the first question you asked was on open source, or why is everyone countries going off on their own, right? Moja Loop, for example, the example that I gave, that Rwanda is working on in terms for the instant and inclusive payment system, is an open source payment system that they've pretty much adopted and are using to run a very specific use case, P2M, on their national payment system. And other countries are actually considering Moja Loop. I know Tanzania, at the Bank of Tanzania, adopted an older version of Moja Loop and have been using it to run the instant payment system, right? So again, what they're trying to do is get out of vendor lock systems and go into open source systems. And if I heard you correctly, you said Fujitsu, right? Japanese, right? Yeah, yeah. So I hope that responds to your question. Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. No, there is definitely some conversion and convergence. If you consider what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is doing in terms of facilitating the movement of people and goods across the continent, as the largest free trade area in the world, they're looking at setting up a DigiPass, which is not an ID, but verifiable credentials that will be layered on existing national ID and will then be able to identify people and goods and services as they move across borders. So, and I've literally just walked out of an IC before I came in on a SADC, Southern Africa Development Community, eKYC product for migrant workers, right? So eKYC that's layered on existing national ID and that enables migrant workers who are living and working in South Africa to be able to access financial services to send money back home, whether it's to Lesotho, Malawi, Zambia. So there is a lot of convergence to solve for problems.